Let's go down to Florida right now and bring in Dan Bongino. You know him, Fox News contributor and a former police officer with the New York City Police Department. Dan, William just set up very accurately what we've known so far. But explain, if you would, because he just mentioned at the end that that was not a technique that is taught. Explain what standard operating procedure is when you've got somebody, you're in the process of arresting them, they are handcuffed. Forget about the knee on the guy's neck, but they are handcuffed and they're saying, I can't breathe and don't kill me. All right, what is standard procedure opposed to what actually happened?
Well, Steve, various law enforcement departments, and me having been with the NYPD and the Secret Service, they have, generally speaking, different use of force continuums. But the guidelines and the skeleton of it are generally the same. And candidly, Steve, when you're in the street working this job, as I did for many years, you're not really thinking about a use of force chart and an XY axis. It's really more helpful to think in general rules. Why do I say that? Because one of the general rules I was taught as a young police officer in New York, and this is inviolable, is this, and don't ever forget this. When those handcuffs are on and the resistance is stopped by the subject, that fight is over. That fight, that day is over. Steve, it does not matter what happened before. You could have just arrested Charles Manson. You could have just arrested a serial killer. It doesn't matter. We are professional law enforcement officers. The overwhelming majority of men and women are dedicated patriots who are on the front line of freedom here domestically. They would not do this. But what happened here, I'm sorry, is a disgrace. You can't watch that video and not have a piece of you ripped apart. That for 6 minutes, what are you doing for 6 minutes on his neck? And let me make a couple other points, if you don't mind. Listen, forget the politics. Sadly, in this country, everything has to be. This is not political. This is a humanity issue. You want to do that stuff? Let the disgraceful, media hacks do that who are interested in. This is a humanity issue. I ask you one simple question to anyone watching this: if that was your son, what would you say? That's it. You look at that and tell me if that was your kid. You would be horrified. You would have done anything to save his life. So I'm sorry, I don't mean, but one more point here too, having been involved heavily in tactics when I was an instructor at the Secret Service Academy. You have two parades of horribles here. Number one, you have a man on the ground, proned out. He can't turn his head backwards. He can barely breathe. Then you put your weight on top of him, and then you concentrate your weight on his neck. I mean, look at that video. If you guys can play it, that would be really... Look at his... This is key. Look, his left knee is on the neck. I want you to look at his right foot. His right foot is moving. Having spent 20 years ground fighting in jiu-jitsu, that should tell you something. That should tell you that his weight is not balanced on his right foot because his right foot's moving. Where's his weight? On his left knee, on his neck. I mean, no, I'm surprised he's lived 6 minutes. I'm genuinely stunned he lived that long. There's no excuse for this. And I've gotten a ton of emails this morning from my law enforcement friends, both active and retired, who are equally horrified by this.
You know, Dan, I was watching you last night, and you were talking with Sean about, y'all both are in mixed martial arts, how that carotid artery is the place you go in order to take someone down and try to actually kill someone if they're harming you. But you're right, it's a humanity issue. I'm a mom. It breaks my heart because I think about what his mom, I don't know his situation, his family situation. But William just said he leaves behind 2 little girls and a girlfriend. This is a human being, and law enforcement, most of them are good guys, good women. They don't go out, trying to say, I'm going to kill someone today, or I'm going to use my force and my power. Most of them go and do the right thing. But I agree with you. What about the guy standing next to him? There were 4 officers that were fired. The guy standing next to him is just watching this for 6 minutes. Why was he doing that for 6 minutes? What was his plan of action? Was it to kill him, to make him pass out?
Ainsley, I think you and I are saying the same thing. We're trying to answer a question we can't answer because you can't, in your head, grasp why you would sit there and watch this. I mean, when I first saw this on Twitter, I think it was a couple days ago, someone had sent it to me and said, look at this. I watched it and I thought the same thing, All right, listen, maybe you thought for a second after a minute that there was a fight going on. When you're a cop, listen, everything is tunnel vision. It is. I've been there. I know what it's like. Everything is horse blinders. Your peripheral vision goes, you're under high stress, your adrenaline's pumping. Maybe for 30 seconds or a minute you thought there was a struggle going on and you didn't just pay. But after 6 minutes, the crowd is telling him, hey, this guy is dying. I just don't understand.
Let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
What we don't know, I don't want to speculate though, because we don't know what his intentions were. And we haven't seen the video. We first see that video of him on the sidewalk, and then we see the next video, someone filming it, of him down on the ground. So we don't know what happened in between.
Yeah. Right. And I said that last night with Sean. There may be video that emerges later. Ainsley, even if it shows he was resisting, that is necessary to tell the story, but it's not necessary for the use of force event. Listen to me. The golden rule. When the handcuffs are on and the resistance stops, it's over. The fight is over. These are professional law enforcement officers. That's it. End of story.
So, Dan, from the law enforcement perspective, I think it's inexcusable. From the experts to the layman, it just looks horrific. Now, the reason why there's riots across the country, Benjamin Watson touched on it last year, African-American tight end who spent the last 15 years in the NFL, who's a great guest on our show. He said, this is racist. This is the Achilles heel since our inception. It took 3 constitutional amendments to make a certain part of our populace full citizens. It took civil rights amendments, even make them citizens, to give them the right to vote. Is this about, and the reason why there's riots in Los Angeles, is this about fundamental racism in America, or is this bad law enforcement from a cop that seems to have done a terrible thing?
Brian, all I can tell you from my experience in law enforcement over a decade, at both the federal and city level in New York and with the Secret Service, is I have never in my life, I'm not kidding, this isn't like virtue signaling for TV so I can impress the liberals watching. I have never in my life seen even a scintilla of someone indicating any racist tendencies. I haven't. And I was there. I experienced. You can challenge that all you want. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying there aren't bad apples in every arena, law enforcement included. I'm telling you, I have never seen it. Matter of fact, I've seen the inverse. I worked in the 7-5 precinct in Eastern New York, which is largely black and Hispanic. And if anything, I saw people being extra careful to not be accused of racism. That's a fact. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just telling you from my experience, I have not seen that, institutionally speaking.
All right. Dan Bongino joined us today from Stuart, Florida. Dan, thank you very much.